Good day everyone. Our topic today is in relation to the perpetuation of life. When we say perpetuation comes from the word perpetuate, which means for something to continue. We will discuss how representative animals reproduce. Reproduction of animals is important for the survival of all living things. Without the mechanism for reproduction, life would come to an end. Now let us explore how animals reproduce. To begin with our lesson, these are the learning objectives. Identify the type of asexual and sexual reproduction in animals. Describe the different ways of how representative animals reproduce. Realize the importance of reproduction to maintain the continuity of life. Now let us define what is reproduction. According to National Geographic, reproduction refers to the production of offspring. We have two types of reproduction. One is sexual reproduction, wherein the organism combines the genetic information from each of its parents and it is genetically unique. On the other hand, asexual reproduction, where one parent copies itself to form a genetically identical offspring. Let us begin with the different types of asexual reproduction of animals. This type of reproduction is the simplest form of reproduction that occurs in simple animals, bacteria, and protists. It is defined as the formation of new individuals from the cells of a single parent. It produces offspring that are genetically identical to the parent because the offspring are all clones of the original parent. This type of reproduction occurs in prokaryotic microorganisms and in some eukaryotic single-celled and multicelled organisms. Animals may reproduce asexually through fission, budding, fragmentation, and parthenogenesis. Let us understand what is budding. It is a kind of asexual reproduction where a small growth on surface of parent breaks off, resulting in the formation of two individuals like the hydra. It is frequently related in both multicellular and unicellular organisms. We have some examples of organisms that reproduce through budding, like bacteria, yeast, corals, flatworms, jellyfish, sea anemones, are several animal species which reproduce through budding. Now let us proceed to fragmentation. Fragmentation is the breaking of the body into two parts with subsequent regeneration. If the animal is capable of fragmentation and the part is big enough, a separate individual will regrow. For example, if the arm of the individual sea star is broken off, it will regenerate a new sea star. Fission is another type of asexual reproduction. It is also called as binary fission, that occurs in prokaryotic microorganisms and in some invertebrate, multicelled organisms. After a period of growth, an organism splits into two separate organisms. Some unicellular eukaryotic organisms undergo binary fission by mitosis. In other organisms, part of the individual separates, forming a second individual. This process occurs, for example, in many asteroid echinoderms through splitting of the central disc. Some sea anemones and some coral polyps also reproduce through fission. Bacteria reproduce by binary fission. In this process, the bacterium, which is a single cell, divides into two identical daughter cells. Also, amoebas are examples of single-celled organisms that reproduce asexually through fission. Parthenogenesis is another form of asexual reproduction where an egg develops into a complete individual without being fertilized. The resulting offspring can be either haploid or diploid, depending on the process and the species. Parthenogenesis also occurs in invertebrates such as water fleas, rotifers, aphids, stick insects, some ants, wasps, and bees. But parthenogenesis has been observed to occur naturally in certain species of whiptails, some geckos, rock lizards, Komodo dragons, and snakes. Now let us understand how animals reproduce through sexual reproduction. For the sexual reproduction in animals, it occurs when the sperm from the male parent fertilizes an egg from the female parent, producing an offspring that is genetically different from both parents. When an organism that has one type of gonad, it is called as unisexual. But when an organism has both male and female gonads, the organism is called as hermaphrodites. The earthworm and the snail are examples of hermaphrodite organisms because they have male and female reproductive organs, and therefore they can produce both eggs and spermatozoa. There are two types of fertilization in animal reproduction. One is external and the other one is internal. Fertilization is the union of an ovum and a spermatozoon. When they unite, they form a zygote. For the external fertilization, it is the union of gametes, which occurs outside the female's body, while internal fertilization is the union of gametes, which occurs inside the body of the female or hermaphrodite.